You ever find yourself staring at your flight ticket, just wondering how the price could possibly be so different from what you saw yesterday? Or why your connection is so tight you have to sprint through the terminal? Well, today we're diving into the absolutely brutal economics of the airline industry to figure it all out.
We have all been there. That feeling of chaos at the airport. It feels so random, right? But here's the thing, it's not. Every single frustrating delay, every overbooked flight, every impossibly short connection, it's all part of a very deliberate, very calculated plan.
And the reason for that plan is pretty simple. Almost every single headache you've ever had as a passenger is a direct result of an airline just trying to survive. This is an industry where the profit margins are paper thin, and pretty much every decision they make is a high-stakes gamble.
And this, right here, is the heart of the problem. You gotta understand, every time a plane pushes back from the gate, it's a multi-thousand-dollar bet. The airline is betting they've sold enough tickets to cover the massive costs. We're talking fuel, the crew, the plane itself. If they lose that bet on just one flight, that's thousands of dollars down the drain. If they lose it too many times, well, they're out of business.
So how do airlines try to stack the deck in their favor? Well, their first, and maybe their most powerful tool, is mastering the incredibly complex puzzle of the flight schedule.
So there are basically two main ways to do this. The big traditional airlines, they use what's called a banked hub. Think of it like organized chaos. A huge wave of planes all land around the same time. Thousands of people swap planes, and then that huge wave takes off again. It's fantastic for giving you those nice short layovers, but it means you need tons of gates, staff, and equipment just sitting around doing nothing in between the waves. On the flip side, you have the budget airlines with their rolling hubs. This is a model built for pure efficiency. Planes land and take off in a constant, steady stream all day long. And wow, this chart just shows you the result of those two strategies. See, a plane only makes money when it's actually in the air. Because of that super efficient rolling hub model, a budget airline like Spirit can keep its planes flying for about 11 hours every single day. Now, compare that to a legacy airline like American, which is only at about 8.5 hours. That 2.5-hour difference might not sound like much, but when you multiply it across an entire fleet of hundreds of planes, that is absolutely massive for the bottom line.
Okay, but getting the schedule right is only half the battle. When you think about it, every airline offers pretty much the same seats, the same pretzels, so the only other big place they can really compete is on the route map itself.
And if you look at the big three US airlines, each one has carved out its own unique strategy. United, they're the gambler. They'll open up these risky, far-flung international routes, hoping to create a whole new market out of thin air. American, they play it a bit safer, focusing on dominating the fast-growing southern US, and they use their partnership in London as a simple gateway to Europe. And then you've got Delta. They're less focused on the map and more on building a premium brand. They're trying to convince you to pay a little more for reliability, and their whole operation is built around their impenetrable fortress hub in Atlanta.
So, how does all this super complex strategy stuff actually affect you, the passenger? Well, these big decisions to control costs and compete on routes, they have very real consequences. And more often than not, they are driven by one single thing, our relentless demand for cheap flights.
I mean, this is just the hard truth of it. Airlines have learned over the years that for the vast majority of us, the price is the only thing that matters. And this constant pressure from us, the consumers, to make flights cheaper and cheaper, well, that's the engine behind some of their most controversial practices, like overbooking. An empty seat is just lost money, so they roll the dice and bet that a few people just won't show up.
And you know what? Their prediction models are scary good. As you can see here, the chances of you actually getting involuntarily bumped from a flight have dropped way down to just 9 out of every 10,000 passengers. Now, it's an absolute nightmare if you happen to be one of those 9, for sure. But for the airline, the daily reward for filling those otherwise empty seats is just too big to pass up.
But what happens when that whole low-cost model just stops working? Just look at this. Back in 2016, budget airlines were basically printing money. Spirit had a staggering 24% operating margin. Today, it has completely collapsed into the negative. We all still want cheap flights, so what on earth went wrong?
Well, it's pretty much a perfect storm. The whole point of a low-cost carrier is having low operating costs, but that advantage has been totally wiped out by things they just can't control. We're talking about soaring fuel prices, constant weather delays, shortages of air traffic controllers, and even mechanical flaws in the super-efficient engines they bought specifically to save money. Their entire business model is now under serious threat.
And when your model is built on low costs, but you're suddenly hit with incredibly high costs, your whole operation becomes fragile. And that fragility, it leads to the ultimate consequence in this business. When the gamble doesn't pay off and the model completely breaks, airlines fail.
And a really strange pattern has started to emerge, especially over in Europe. Just look at the dates of these huge airline collapses. Monarch, Air Berlin, Primera Air, Thomas Cook, all of them were massive failures, and they all happened in either September or October. This is absolutely not a coincidence. It's become known as Europe's annual airline culling season.
And the reason why is terrifyingly simple. After a busy, profitable summer, the money just stops coming in. Let's break it down. European airlines rely heavily on summer vacationers, so they're collecting cash all the way from March through August. But the moment September hits, bookings just fall off a cliff. The cash flow dries up, but the bills, for fuel, for staff, for debt, they don't stop. For any airline that's already financially weak, this is the beginning of a death spiral that ends in bankruptcy. Which really leaves us with this one big question. Every scheduling trick, every bet on a new route, every single overbooked seat, it's all a direct response to our demand for lower and lower fares. But in pushing the industry to operate on this razor's edge, are we accidentally creating a system that's just become too brittle to withstand any kind of turbulence?